Good morning and good morning, Israel.
Thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us, Ambassador Z'ornès. Let's dive in to the elephant in the room, and that's, of course, the announcement of President Macron. You know, for many years, France didn't recognize a Palestinian state, and it decides to do so after Israel experienced the worst terror attack in its history after October 7th, 2023. How would you expect Israelis not to view this as a reward for terror?
Well, you know, Efi, I know lots of the people with whom I talk here in Israel don't understand, are sometimes furious at us. What I've been trying to explain is that we've been doing a maneuver. That's our job as a power, with connection in the Muslim world, a role in the UN. And what appeared from our discussions with the Saudis is that, unlike 1 year ago, major Arab players were actually willing to engage in stabilizing Gaza after the war. What they expected from us to do on return was to make a clear move that the end game of the whole thing has to be a Palestinian state. And if we recognize that state, we can gather a much broader coalition of Arab and Muslim countries. So that was the reason why we used that leverage. We had hesitated in the past, but it's a move in order to obtain a way ahead, to get out of the war at some point. It's going to be a Palestinian state. It's going to be a small state. It will not have an army. It has to de-radicalize its schooling programs. It has to accept living in peace with Israel. But what we will do on our side is that we accept that the future means normalization with Israel, security architecture involving an Israeli state being acknowledged by all of its neighbors, and yes, a Palestinian state living by its side. But the thing that made President Macron decide was that all those countries who 1 year ago would not accept a word from us when we were saying we will need to rebuild Gaza and feed those people, organize a state and administration in Gaza without Hamas, were willing to do something. But the thing for them, it's very clearly, it has to be part of a state. Mm-hmm. And they won't do it under occupation or under fire.
I'll just translate. שאלתי את השגריר ז'ורנס לגבי ההכרה במדינה פלסטינית דווקא אחרי 7 באוקטובר. הוא אמר שהוא מבין את הזעם שיש בישראל, אבל פשוט לא מבינים נכון את הצעד הזה של צרפת. מדובר במינוף דיפלומטי שנועד למעשה לעזור לישראל. לדבריו מהדיונים עם סעודיה שהתקיימו באום, התברר שבניגוד למצב לפני שנה, סעודיה ומדינות ערביות נוספות מוכנות לדבר על שיקום עזה והזזת חמאס מהשלטון שם, אבל הן מבקשות שיהיה עתיד לרעיון המדינה הפלסטינית, בעצם הצעד הצרפתי שנועד למעשה לקדם את הפירוז של עזה והשיקום של עזה, ויאפשר גם לסיים את המלחמה הזו ביום מן הימים, כך הוא אומר. What is the meaning of recognizing a Palestinian state? Will there be a French embassy in Ramallah?
I don't know honestly how that translates. The message is to say, because that was also a dimension related to the unfolding of events in Gaza, which played a huge role into that. That's the reason why it happened now. Mm-hmm. How we will organize after, I don't know that yet. But that's the things that will be coming after. And recognize, yes. But it's also about telling to our Palestinian counterparts, you also need to take your responsibilities now. You have to do your homework to reform. You have to do your homework to end hate speech in your school books, end the pay for slave politics, become a credible country.
שאלתי את השגריר לגבי איך זה יתבטא בשטח, הכרה במדינה פלסטינית, האם תהיה בקרוב שגרירות צרפת ברמאללה, אז הוא אומר, אני עוד לא יודע איך זה יתבטא, אבל מה שברור הוא שהצעד הזה צריך לאותת גם לפלסטינים, לשכנים שלכם, לפלסטינים, שהם צריכים לפעול למען פירוז עזה, למען הפיכת עזה לשטח בטוח. There is, we can say, a threat of the Israeli government to close the French consulate in Jerusalem if President Macron recognizes a Palestinian state next month in the UN General Assembly. What would be France's reaction to that?
I don't know what it will be, but it will not be a cool one. That's for sure. Those are situations which we have lived with Russia. We've been facing that sort of thing with Algeria right now. I can really say I'm not happy to have that sort of things happening with a country like Israel, which I've loved for so many years and which I will keep loving no matter what happens. Talking very seriously, this is a place which we have used and a building that we have used even before the creation of the State of Israel. It's been the place where we have maintained our relationship with the Palestinian people, but also with the French people living in Jerusalem, in the territories around it. So to us, it's important. What the reaction will be, I don't know yet. I will say we're going to see what happens and let our Israeli friends wait. They usually don't like to wait, but there will be an answer. That's the sort of things that we don't like. I think it's not the best thing to do because once again, the political maneuver we've been doing with the Arabs right now is to bring them around the table of a normalization. But here there is the matchmaking between foreign policy, domestic policy. We'll see what the moves will be. It's a place which has been a symbol of our diplomatic action. We are a country which is sensitive to symbols. We can handle them quietly, but we won't like it, that's for sure.
שאלתי את השגריר לגבי תגובת צרפת אם אכן ישראל תסגור את הקונסוליה הצרפתית בירושלים, והוא אומר בצורה ברורה, אני עוד לא יודע מה תהיה התגובה, זו לא תהיה תגובה רגועה. אנחנו נמצאים במצב דומה מול אלג'יריה, מול רוסיה, אנחנו ממש לא נרצה להיות במצב דומה מול ישראל ידידתנו. הבניין הזה שאנחנו משתמשים בו, בניין הקונסוליה בירושלים, משמש אותנו עוד לפני כינון מדינת ישראל. אנחנו מספקים שם שירותים דיפלומטיים, אנחנו בהחלט לא נהיה מרוצים אם יוחלט לסגור אותו. אנחנו בדרך כלל אוהבים להגיב תחילה בשקט, אבל זה לא אומר שלא נגיב. תהיה תגובה, זה לא יהיה צעד טוב מבחינת ישראל, דברים חריפים של השגריר. Ambassador Z'Hornes, we heard lately about desecrating synagogues in France, the anti-Semitism writing on the wall in the El Al branch, the controller in the airport that said on the radio, Free Palestine. Is France becoming a place that is not safe for Israelis, for Jews?
I remember the time when I was a young man. It's actually the discovery of the Shoah when I was adolescent and of the suffering of the Jewish people that made me be interested in Jewish culture and later interested in Israel. What I see happening in France, in other countries in the Western world or worldwide, to me is absolutely horrible. What's happening right now is extremely serious. I don't take it lightly. I don't know who are the horrible people who cut the olive trees that had been planted for Ilan Halimi. He was a young Jewish boy, kidnapped, tortured by monsters because they relate Jews with money. Come on, he was an employee selling smartphones in a shop. And they cut his tree. What gives me hope is that olive trees, they grow back from their roots. You know, my family on my father's side, they're from the south of France. My grandfather was growing olive trees, so I hope we will let Ilan's tree grow back. What's happening right now is extremely worrying. And I have to be clear with you. It has been fueled by the way the warfare unraveled in Gaza, because it allowed the real anti-Semites to use hostility to the war in Gaza to create this wave of anti-Semitism, which we have everywhere. And it is something serious. Now, we are taking action for police, protecting synagogues, protecting kosher shops, protecting community centers. Aurore Berger, one of our ministers, she did an amazing job with the parliament, putting forward proposal to fight anti-Semitism for both legal punishment and education. But it's going to take us decades to go back to where we were. And ending the war is going to be very important to going back to educating people to the fact that anti-Semitism is wrong. I have some of my friends who are suffering. They're not feeling well. They're not living under daily attacks. I have in the building where my parents live in Paris an accountant firm, and fortunately they can still wear their kippahs. They still have mezuzot on their buildings. And so I hope this will remain. But I also have friends who traveled in Europe and told me they felt a very cold door during being tourists, not only in France, in other countries. That's a hard time. And peace is key to get out of that.
שאלתי את השגריר ז'ורנס לגבי גילויי האנטישמיות האחרונים בצרפת, והוא אומר, קודם כל, אני מודה שאני לא יודע כרגע להגיד לך אם צרפת לא בטוחה ליהודים, המצב הוא לא טוב. הוא גם מגנה בכל לשון של גינוי את כריתת עץ הזית, שתיל עץ הזית שנשתל לזכרו של אילן חלימי, שנרצח בצרפת על רקע אנטישמי, והוא אומר שהוא מקווה מאוד שיגיע במהרה היום שאפשר יהיה לשתול את עץ הזית שוב, והוא מדבר על כך שהאנטישמים מנצלים את הדרך שבה מתנהלת המלחמה בעזה כדי לתת דרור לדעות האנטישמיות שלהם. האנטישמים בעצם מנצלים את המשך המלחמה כדי להחצין את האנטישמיות שלהם כלפי יהודים. הוא מספר בבניין שבו נמצאת החברה של הוריו דווקא יש עדיין מזוזות ואפשר ללכת עם כיפה על הראש בביטחון יחסי, אבל גם חברים שלו סיפרו לו שלא רק בצרפת, גם במדינות אחרות באירופה, יהודים מרגישים כתף קרה כתיירים, והוא אומר, השלום חיוני מאוד לעצור את הנושא הזה. הוא מודאג מאוד מהאפשרות שהמצב הנוכחי בעצם מחזיר אחורה עשרות שנים את המאבק באנטישמיות בצרפת. The French ambassador to Israel, Perdric Zhornes, again, thank you very much, sir, for taking the time to speak with us, and good morning.
Thank you, Efi. Good morning to everybody.
Thank you very much.